So welcome everybody, day 20 of book reading session, A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle. Breaking identification with the pain body. A person with a strong active pain body has a particular energy emanation that other people perceive as extremely unpleasant. When they meet a person, some people will immediately want to remove themselves or reduce interaction with them or him or her to a minimum. They feel repulsed by the person's energy field. Others will feel a wave of aggression toward this person and they will be rude or attack him or her verbally and in some cases even physical. This means there is something within them that resonates with the other person's pain body. What they react to so strongly is also in them. It is their own pain body. Not surprisingly, people with heavy and frequently active pain bodies often find themselves in conflicting situations. Sometimes, of course, they actively provoke them, but at other times, they may not actually do anything. The negativity they emanate is enough to attract hostility and generate conflict. It requires a high degree of presence to avoid reacting when confronted by someone with such an active pain body. If you are able to stay present, it sometimes happens that your presence enables the other persons to disidentify from his or her own pain body and thus experience the miracle of sudden awakening. Although the awakening may be short lived, the awakening process will have become initiated. One of the first such awakenings that I witnessed happened many years ago. My doorbell rang close to 11 o'clock at night. My neighbor Ethel's anxiety laden voice came out through the intercom. We need to talk. This is very important. Please let me in. Ethel was middle aged, intelligent, and highly educated. She also had a strong ego and a heavy pain body. She escaped from Nazi Germany when she was an adolescent, and many of her family members perished in the concentration camps. Ethel sat down on my sofa, agitated, her hands trembling. She took letters and documents out of the file she carried with her and spread them out all over the sofa and floor. At once, I had the strange sensation as if a dimmer switch had turned the inside of my entire body to maximum power. There was nothing to do other than remain open, alert, intensely present, present with every cell of the body. I looked at her with no thought and no judgment and listened in stillness without any mental commentary. A torrent of words came out of her mouth. They sent me another disturbing letter today. They are conducting a vendetta against me. You must help. We need to fight them together. Their crooked lawyers will stop at nothing. I will lose my home. They're threatening me with disposition. It transpired that she refused to pay the service charge because the property managers had filed to carry out some repairs. They in turn threatened to take her to court. She talked for 10 minutes or so. I sat, looked, and listened. Suddenly, she stopped talking, looking at the papers all around her as if she had just woken up from a dream. She became calm and gentle. Her entire energy file changed. Then she looked at me and said, "This isn't important at all, is it?" "No, it isn't," I said. She sat quietly for a couple more minutes, then picked up her papers and left. The next morning, she stopped me in the street, looking at me somewhat suspiciously. "What did you do to me?" Last night was the first night in years that I slept well. In fact, I slept like a baby. She believed I had done something to her, but I had done nothing. Instead of asking what I had done to her, perhaps she should have asked what I had not done. I had to reacted. I had not reacted, not confirmed the reality of her story, not fed her mind with more thought and her pain body with more emotion. I had allowed her to experience whatever she was experiencing at that moment. And the power of allowing lies in non-interference, non-doing. Being present is always infinitely more powerful than anything one could say or do. Although sometimes being present can give rise to words or actions. What happened to her was not yet a permanent shift, but a glimpse of what is possible, a glimpse of what was already within her. In Zen, such a glimpse is called Satori. Satori is a moment of presence, a brief stepping out of the voice in your head, the thought process, and their reflection in body as emotion. It is the arising of inner spaciousness where before there was the clutter of thought and the turmoil of emotion. The thinking mind cannot understand presence and so will often misinterpret it. It will say that you are uncaring, distant, have no compassion, and are not relating. The truth is, you are relating, but at a level deeper than thought and emotion. In fact, at a level, there is a true coming together, a true joining that goes far beyond relating. In the stillness of presence, you can sense the formless essence in yourself and in others as one. Knowing the oneness of yourself and the other is true love, true care, true compassion. So what exactly happened when when he's talking about this instance that happened with his neighbor? It's nothing but if somebody has an issue, okay, in your day-to-day lives, you will be encountering a lot of people who will have issues, okay, and they want to talk about it. And it is important also because the entire thing that is causing that pain or that discomfort inside your system, which is stored inside your pain body, actually needs to come out. So when a person is talking about their problems, their issues, or their challenges, it's very important to let them speak, because till the time it does not go out of the system, that disidentification from pain body cannot happen. बिकॉज जब वो चीज मेरे अंदर ही स्टोर्ड है और मैंने उसको बॉडी से बाहर निकालने का कोई एफर्ट ही नहीं किया, तो बाहर कैसे आएगी? And the whole process of breaking this disidentification with the pain body works in extreme scenarios is when the person is actually speaking about that which he or she is uncomfortable with, actually goes into that state of that discomfort by nearly reliving that experience, and in that process taking it out of the system. अब एक चीज हमने बॉडी से बोल के बाहर निकाल दी, ठीक है, दैट मीन्स जहां पे वो जो भी स्टोर्ड था हमारी पेन बॉडी में स्टोर्ड था, हमने एक एफर्ट किया और हमने उसको, जैसे कहते हैं ना, अपनी भड़ास निकाल दी, हमने वो बाहर निकाल दी. नाउ इज द चैलेंज वेर इन if that place which has been created, that void, if that void in the pain body is filled with other person's reaction, views, comments, gossip, तो वो वापस वहीं पे स्टोर हो जाएगा. But अगर it's coming from and it's in the presence of a person who is aware of all this and he does not react, shows interest, but does not comment, does not make any judgments, but it is there as just a listener, not an analyzer and not a judgment labeler. and there is no reaction. It is just absorption of what the other person is saying with a view to help the other person take out what is there inside. And then जब हमारा कोई भी उस सेकंड पार्टी का कोई रिएक्शन नहीं, कोई कमेंट नहीं, कोई जजमेंट नहीं आता, it's like you're talking to this wall and you're taking out everything from your system, and you suddenly realize that wall तो कुछ कह ही नहीं रही है. That means probably I need to rethink. And that is where it hits you that it is not important. Because जब आपने उस, it's like that momentary glimpse of that experience where anything that was causing that issue, which is stored inside your pain body, you have got this opportunity and you have made use of that opportunity of taking out whatever was disturbing you by way of speaking it out. So there is an energy that is going outside from you. जो आपके अंदर है वो आप बाहर निकाल रहे हो, and you're creating that vacuum. Now the question is, if that vacuum gets filled, or if that void gets filled with judgment, label, reaction, criticism, it stays. But if that vacuum does not get filled by the criticism, the reaction, or any other external response, the nature's way of filling that void is with extreme calmness and extreme serenity. So हमने अंदर से निकाला, and the other person helped by not putting the same thing back, or accompanied with his reaction and other judgments and labels back into our own system. So for that momentary glimpse, when the thing went out from your pain body and there was no reaction, there was no judgment, there was no labeling by the other person, that void gets filled by the universe's peace and serenity. And that is a momentary glimpse of that awakening everybody talks about. So it is very important to, get these things out of your system. Because the first thing you can do is, as an empowered individual, identify that this is what, is making me uncomfortable. And you're making a conscious effort to take it out of your system. But yes, it's very important wo aap kiske bahar, who is the other person that you are trying to, take it out from your pain body as terms of an experience which is bothering you. And in a lot of cases, in case you feel that you cannot discuss it with anybody, one of the most powerful exercises to take whatever is causing harm to you from the inside outside you is just play some nice calm music and just face the wall. That place should be where you are not disturbed for good 5-10 minutes. And whatever is it that you want to say, whatever is it that you want to take it out from your system, just blurs the wall initially. If there is a trained person who can act, because this is a very powerful exercise which is run by a lot of courses, including Landmark in their advanced level, if the other person can act like a wall, only and only if have that person, else start practicing it alone with just a wall, and just make a conscious effort that you have to take it out of your system. Because once you take it out of your system and nothing comes back from the external environment, there is an internal pharmacy by the universe inside that is going to fill that void with all that peace and all that serenity. And this is exactly what happened with this case when the author was concerned. Because the author was an empowered individual and acted like that wall, where there was nothing coming from him in terms of a reaction or a judgment or an opinion or a criticism, anything from that side. So it was like a firm wall faced like a human. Triggers. Now, this is important. Some pain bodies react to only one particular kind of trigger or situation, which is usually one that resonates with a certain kind of emotional pain suffered in the past. For example, if a child grows up with parents for whom financial issues are the source of frequent drama and conflict, he or she may absorb the parents' fear around money and develop a pain body that is triggered when financial issues are involved. The child adult gets upset or angry even over insignificant amounts of money. Behind the upset and anger lies issues of survival and intense fear. I have seen spiritual, that is to say, relatively conscious people who started to shout, blame, and make accusations the moment they picked up the phone to talk to their stockbroker or a realtor. Just as there is a health warning on every package of cigarettes, perhaps there should be similar warnings on every banknote and bank statement. Money can activate the pain body and cause complete unconsciousness. Someone who in childhood was neglected or abandoned by any of or both parents will likely develop a pain body that becomes triggered in any situation that resonates even remotely with their primordial pain of abandonment. A feeling arrives, a friend arriving a few minutes late to pick them up at the airport, or a spouse coming late can trigger a major pain body attack. If their partner or spouse leaves them or dies, the emotional pain they experience goes far beyond the pain that is natural in such a situation. It may be intense anguish, long lasting, incapacitating depression, or obsessive anger. A woman who in childhood was physically abused by her father may find that her pain body becomes easily activated in any close relationship with a man. Alternatively, the emotion that makes up her pain body withdraw her to a man whose pain body is similar to that of her father. A pain body may feel a magnetic pull to someone who it senses will give it more of the same pain. The pain is sometimes misinterpreted as falling in love. A man who has been an unwanted child and was given no love and a minimum of care and attention by his mother developed a heavy, ambivalent pain body that consisted of unfulfilled, intense longing for his woman's love, for his mother's love and attention, and that same time intense hatred towards her for withholding what he so desperately needed. When he becomes an adult, almost every woman would trigger his pain body's neediness, a form of emotional pain, and this would manifest as an addictive compulsion to conquer and seduce almost every woman he met, and in this way get the female love and attention that the pain body craved. He became quite an expert on seduction, but as soon as the relationship turned intimate or his advances were rejected, the pain body's anger towards his mother would come up and sabotage the relationships. When you recognize your own pain body as it arrives, you will also quickly learn what the most common triggers are that activate it, whether it be situations or certain things other people do or say. When those triggers occur, you will immediately see for what they are and enter a higher, heightened state of alertness. Within a second or two, you will also notice the emotional reaction that is the arising pain body. But in that state of alert presence, you won't identify with it, which means the pain body cannot take you over and become the voice in your head. If you are with your partner at that time, you may tell him or her what you just said or did triggered my pain body. have an argument with your partner, that whenever either of you says or does something that triggers the other's pain body, you will immediately mention it. In this way, the pain body can no longer renew itself through drama in the relationship, and instead of pulling you into the unconsciousness, will help you become fully present. Every time you are present with the pain body, every time you are present when the pain body arises, some of the pain body's negative emotional energy will burn up, as it were, and become transmuted into presence. The rest of the pain body will quickly withdraw and wait for a better opportunity to rise again. That is to say, when you are less conscious, a better opportunity for the pain body to arise may come whenever you lose presence. Perhaps after you had a few drinks or while watching a violent film, the tiniest negative motion, such as being irritated or anxious, can also serve as a doorway through which the pain body can return. The pain body needs your unconsciousness. It cannot tolerate the light of presence. So, what is explained here is exactly how we develop these kind of situations in our life, in our day-to-day lives. और हमें लगता पता नहीं यार हमारे साथ ऐसा क्यों हो रहा है, because everything is about a trigger. और जो वो trigger है, trigger is nothing but a switch on, but that wiring of that past incident is already there. So जो वो trigger है, the issue is not with the trigger. The issue is not कि मैंने वो जाके वो switch on कर दिया और आपको करंट लगा. No, उसमें पीछे से करंट था. ट्रिगर ने खाली उसको एक्टिवेट किया है. You need to actually realize and, you know, absorb this, because whatever the trigger did had nothing to do with what was earlier, because the trigger is nothing but a switch on button. And as humans, we have a switchboard which are different triggers, and we walk around with those invisible switchboard triggers. And all people do is just press that point. And the issue is not in that person or in that trigger. The issue is in the current which is already there. ट्रिगर तो खाली उस करंट को एक्टिवेट कर रहा है और कुछ नहीं कर रहा है. That current, that spark is already there inside. So if there is a switchboard, the light is already the light switch is already connected to that particular switch. पर जब तक मैं वो ऑन नहीं करता, वो लाइट ऑन नहीं होती. So अगर मैं वो जाके बटन दबा के वो लाइट ऑन करूंगा, so the issue is not in that switch, or the issue is not in that I am switching it on. The issue is in the current which is in the backstage. That is an unresolved trauma of your past. Could be आपके parents के साथ बचपन में कोई issue हुआ हो, you know, these are something which you know, it's very common with everybody. It's not कि ये मेरे साथ है या उसके साथ है. It's a very common thing. Because उस time पे, when as a child you witness that event, that child did not have a proper understanding or a proper maturity level to decode what was being said. But that situation or that event creates that trauma that is the underlying current in your switchboard. इससे बड़े अच्छे examples दिए हैं in this paragraph, in this page, where he explains, you know, it can be money related, it can be abandonment related, it can be with the physical abuse regarding, you know, if you had a physical abuse in your childhood, or it can be anything related, you know, whether your mother did not love you. And this is actually how it happens. So what he said there, it does get validated when we do a lot of healing sessions, because ultimately it comes down to that child who witnessed that, either physically on his own self or even as witness. So if a child has witnessed in his childhood that his brother or his sibling, elder sibling, younger sibling, is being beaten up by the parent because of a certain issue, he develops that fear कि अगर मैंने ये किया मुझे तो मार पड़ेगी, तो मैं तो ये करूंगा ही नहीं, मैं तो इसको ऑपोजिट करूंगा ताकि मैं मारना पड़ूं. एंड एज ए रिजल्ट अ लॉट ऑफ केसेस, जब आप एक चीज को अपने आप को कंट्रोल करते हो कि मुझे ये नहीं करना है, बिकॉज अगर ये करूंगा तो मार पड़ेगी और मार से तो दर्द होएगी, सो यू एंड अप डूइंग द फ्लिप साइड, दैट मैं वही चीज करूंगा जिससे मार की बजाय मेरे को शाबाशी मिले. एंड as a result of this influence, you end up becoming a people pleaser in your entire life, where you will do everything just to please the other people. And as a result, subduing whatever is there in terms of your true emotion, in terms of your true happiness, or in terms of your true experiences, or bus, it's all about pleasing the other person because of that child who saw in the past कि भैया अगर मैंने ये नहीं किया, because he saw, उसने वो किया तो मार पड़ेगी, अगर मैंने भी ये किया तो मुझे भी मार पड़ेगी, so I have to do the opposite, so I have to do something जिससे शाबाशी मिले. And as a result, that person becomes a people pleaser, where he will always do everything to please the other person. And it is only when he realizes, being an adult, that what is he, how is he creating or manifesting things in his life which is not making him comfortable. और फिर जब वो थेरेपी पे जाता है या एनी अदर modality, he will discover from where it is coming. So जो भी आपके triggers हैं which are making you uncomfortable, which are triggering that pain body, have that connection, that current from a past, from a younger version of you, who at that time could not interpret it the way the adult can actually interpret. There was a very interesting case. There was this guy who used to make a lot of money. Okay, but every 3 or 4 years, somehow he would lose all his money and he would become bankrupt. And this was a pattern in his life for good three times of bankruptcy. मतलब 15 years 16 years में बहुत पैसा कमाया, सारा पैसा खत्म, बहुत पैसा कमाया, सारा पैसा, बहुत पैसा कमाया, bankrupt. And when he got his life, when he analyzed his life, it actually came down from a belief wherein his mother had drilled it inside him that if you get a lot of money, you will lose the human value. तो जब वो बहुत ज्यादा पैसा आ जाता था, बंदा एफर्ट करता था, पैसा आ जाता था, फिर बिलीफ ट्रिगर होता था, तूने तो इतना पैसा कमा लिया, तू तो घमंडी हो जाएगा, तू तो ये हो जाएगा, तू तो वो हो जाएगा, चल जी सारा पैसा खर्च कर दो. So he would end up spending all his money unnecessary without knowing what was happening. And when he worked with that belief system that you can be rich and not necessarily get arrogant, and you can enjoy being humble and rich at the same time, that is what it changed. And he came after 12 years of that incident and said, now I've never been bankrupt and I have enough money and my life is going perfectly well. So छोटे छोटे जो लाइफ के आपके इंस्टेंसेस है in your childhood create such an intense trauma that a lot of your life actually, that current इतना strong हो जाता है कि कोई ना कोई जब भी उसको ट्रिगर करेगा, you end up bursting, and this becomes actually a pattern. So just always remember, it's not important that there is a trigger. It's important to identify what is the trigger, because that's important. But the issue is not in the trigger. The issue is not in the person who's triggering it. The issue is in the underlying current जिसको वो ट्रिगर एक्टिवेट कर रहा है. बिकॉज प्रॉब्लम या जो जैसे कहते हैं ना, द क्रक्स ऑफ द मैटर is in that situation that needs to be resolved. Identifying the trigger is important, but the trigger is not the root cause, or the person, pressing the trigger is never the root cause. The root cause is always in that underlying current जो already present है. And it's very important to identify these and start, working with this. And, in a lot of situations, people, they find it difficult to identify. That is where all these therapies and mind work comes in, where we are able to identify the triggers and the underlying current जो उस ट्रिगर को एक्टिवेट कर रही है, and then resolve that childhood trauma which is actually there stuck in the pain body. The pain body as an awakener. At first sight, it may seem that the pain body is the greatest obstacle to the arising of a new consciousness in humanity. It occupies your mind, controls and distorts your thinking, disrupts your relationship, and feels like a dark cloud that occupies your entire energy field. It tends to make you unconscious, spiritually speaking, which means totally identified with mind and emotion. It makes you reactive, makes you say and do things that are designed to increase the unhappiness within yourself and the world. As unhappiness increases, however, it also increases disruption in your life. Perhaps the body can't take the stress anymore and develops an illness or some dysfunction. Perhaps you have become involved in an accident, some huge conflict situation or drama that was caused by the pain body's desire for something bad to happen, or you become the perpetrator of physical violence. Or it all becomes too much and you cannot live with your unhappy self anymore. The pain body, of course, is part of the false self. Whenever you get taken over by the pain body, whenever you don't recognize it or what it is, it becomes part of your ego. Whatever you identify with turns into ego. The pain body is one of the most powerful things the ego can identify with, just as the pain body needs the ego to renew itself through it. That unholy alliance, however, eventually breaks down in those cases where the pain body is so heavy that the egoic mind structures, instead of being strengthened by it, are becoming eroded by the continuous onslaught of the pain body's energy charge. In the same way that an electronic device can be empowered by an electric current, but also destroyed by its voltage if the voltage is too high. People with strong pain bodies often reach a point where they feel their life is becoming unbearable, where they can't take any more pain, any more drama. One person expressed this by saying plainly and simply that she was fed up with being unhappy. Some people may feel, as I did, that they cannot live with themselves anymore. Inner peace then becomes their first priority. Their acute emotional pain forces them to disidentify from the content of their mind and the mental emotional structures that give birth to and perpetuate the unhappy me. They then know that neither their unhappy story nor the emotion they feel is who they are. They realize that they are knowing, not the known. Rather than pulling them into the unconsciousness, the pain body becomes their awakener, the decisive factor that forces them into a state of presence. However, due to the unprecedented influx of consciousness we are witnessing on our planet now, many people no longer need to go through the depth of acute suffering to be able to disidentify from the pain body. Whenever they notice they have slipped back into a dysfunctional state, they are able to choose to step out of identification with thinking and emotion and enter the state of presence. They relinquish resistance, become still and alert, one with what is within and without. The next step in human evolution is not inevitable, but for the first time in the history of our planet, it can be a conscious choice. Who is making that choice? You are. And who are you? Consciousness that has become conscious of itself. So पेन बॉडी का जब हम उस एक्सपीरियंस को रियलाइज करते हैं, it's very important to because a lot of your awakening or your enlightening journeys actually start with when you're living and working with your pain body consciously, in that sphere where you become the consciousness that is conscious of itself. It's very simple. जब हम अपने सारे इमोशंस, सारे थॉट्स से अपने आप को अटैच नहीं करते, there's a very clear conscious attempt there that this is my thought. I am not this thought. This is my emotion. I am not this emotion. And when this is my mind, I am not my mind. When you start working with that aspect of being so consciously aware and eventually practicing that detachment, or I would say, I heard recently very nice word, that objectivity towards that angle, because detachment can involve a lot of negative connotations. So this person very nicely said, we're looking for an objectivity angle to it, where you become the witness who is seeing it as an object. Rather than being detached, you are aware that this is happening. So this is my thought, but I am not this thought. This is my emotion, but I am not this emotion. That is where you actually get to that experience of being conscious of consciousness in itself. So then who you are is the consciousness that is aware of the consciousness of itself. Breaking free of the pain body. A question people frequently ask is, how long does it take to become free of the pain body? The answer is, of course, that it depends both on the density of an individual's pain body as well as the degree or intensity of that individual's arising presence. But it is not the pain body, but identification with it that causes the suffering that you inflict on yourself and others. It is not the pain body, but identification with the pain body that forces you to relive the past again and again and keeps you in a state of unconsciousness. So a more important question to ask would be this: how long does it take to become free of identification with pain body? Because जो भी वो pain body को feed कर रहा है, it's very important to note here that pain body in itself is not an issue, but it's that identification of that experience, of that story, which is, with that unresolved trauma and that pain body. That is where the connection is. So it's not that you have to get rid of the pain body, it's that you have to you have to cut that current that is flowing in that story attached to that trauma. That is what is creating all that experience. And that is actually called a desensitizing that trigger. And the answer to that question, it takes no time at all. I repeat, how long does it take to become free of identification with the pain body? And the answer to that question, it takes no time at all. When the pain body is activated, know that you are feeling what you are feeling is the pain body in you. This knowing is all that is needed to break your identification with it. And when identification with it ceases, the transmutation begins. The knowing prevents the old emotion from rising up in your head and taking over not only the internal dialogue, but also your actions as well as interactions with other people. This means the pain body cannot use you anymore and renew itself through you. The old emotion may then still live in you for a while and come up periodically. It may also still occasionally trick you into identifying with it again and thus obscure the knowing, but not for long. Not projecting the old emotion into situations means facing it directly within yourself. It may not be pleasant, but it won't kill you. Your presence is more than capable of containing it. The emotion is not who you are. When you feel the pain body, don't fall into the error of thinking there is something wrong with you, making yourself into a problem. The ego loves that. The knowing needs to be followed by accepting. Anything else will obscure it again. Accepting means you allow yourself to feel whatever is you are feeling at that moment. It is part of the isness of the now. You can't argue with what is. Well, you can, but if you do, you suffer. Through allowing, you become what you are, vast, spacious. You become whole. You are not a fragment anymore, which is how the ego perceives itself. Your true nature emerges, which is one with the nature of God. Jesus points to this when he says, be thy whole, even as your Father in heaven is whole. The New Testament's be thy perfect is a mistranslation of the original Greek word, which means whole. That is to say, you don't need to become whole, but be what you already are with or without the pain body.